Hello, everybody. Lori here from Unique in the Creek. And today I want to make with you a beautiful fall flower since it is the fall season now. And what I'm going to be using is this gorgeous gold deluxe foil mesh. Isn't that pretty? And then I'm also using this copper deluxe foil mesh. This is going to be the sparkliest flower known to man. No, just kidding. I'm also going to be using this gorgeous, look at this center I'm going to be using. This is made with feathers. Isn't this gorgeous? It pulls in both of these colors beautifully. So this is going to be stunning. So the first thing I'm going to do though is on the back of my flower was this clip. Okay, so it does come with like an alligator clip. We don't want this. So I pulled it right out and it's got some kind of spring in it. And what I'm going to do is just cut the spring off because you'll be able to use this little alligator clip to help hold your petals if you need. So don't toss that out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pipe cleaner and a U-pin, a floral pin, and I'm just going to, because this is styrofoam that the feathers are on, and I'm just going to push this in to the bottom of my ornament and then go over with some hot glue. And that way our center is ready to go when our flower is complete. Okay, so let's just set this aside. There we go. That is going to be so gorgeous. So let's just put this aside. Next thing we have to do is we have to cut our mesh. Okay, I'm just going to be using my rotary cutter. I am going to be using the large board, so we'll preload that after we cut our mesh. So we want to cut, this mesh is 10 by 10. So when you're making flowers, sometimes you need your flower petals to be absolutely square. What you want to do is make sure on the bottom that what your mesh is. Sometimes it's 10, which ours is. Sometimes it's 10.25. Sometimes it's 10.5. Make sure you check this, especially if you need to make a perfect square. We are going to be using a perfect square for this flower. So we're going to cut our mesh 10 by 10. So I'm going to roll it out on my mat. Look how sparkly it is. Okay, and I have a fairly long mat. Mine's 36 inches. Now I like to find a line to make sure that my bottom of my mesh, the factory edge at bottom, is running along the line. So I make sure it's pretty squared up. All right, and then I'm going to put something heavy just to hold that down. And then I'm going to start at the 30. And you want to make sure, so you don't get a lot of fray, you want to make sure you have a sharp rotary cutter. Or even better, you could wood burn this if you are a wreather and you know how to wood burn. And if you don't, I do have a video on my YouTube channel on how to wood burn and heat seal mesh. And what that means, it's just sealing the edge of the mesh so it doesn't fray. Now, the deluxe foil mesh doesn't fray as much as any other mesh because there is more metallic strips in this mesh than there is plastic. So it is normally the plastic that frays. So this mesh is actually pretty good for just cutting with a rotary cutter. Okay. But there's lots of people out there that really, really hate the frays. And I understand. So you can heat seal, but like I said, you can most definitely can rotary cutter it too. So again, I'm just going to make sure my bottom is lined up on a line on my cutting mat because I want to make my squares as perfect as possible, if that's even a thing. So I'm going up my 30, then my 20, and then my 10. So for this flower, I'm going to be cutting 20 10 by 10 pieces of the copper. Now I'm having the copper on the inside of my flower, and I'm going to have the gold on the outside of the flower. So if you wanted to do reverse, you would need, and have the gold in the center, you would need 20 gold and 24 copper. So for me, the way I'm doing it, I need 20 copper and I need 24 pieces of the gold. Okay, so once you've got all your mesh cut, you can put that aside, and we're going to preload our large board and get ready to build our flower. So if you're not familiar with the Unique in the Creek boards, this is the large board, and it has 5 circumferences on it, so 5 rows. And they're indicated by numbers right on the rows for you. So when I refer to row 2, it's this row, and there is a number 2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So at the top of row 1, where the number 1 is, there's 2 holes. Those are chamfered holes or divoted in holes. They're kind of caved in. Those are what we call our hanging holes. And we're going to use these 2 holes to place a zip tie in, or you can use a ribbon or wire or whatever you want to make a hanger to hang your wreath up. So what you're going to do is take one of your zip ties, go from the back up through one of the holes and back down the other hole. And then you're going to take your zip tie, and we're going to use the flat part of the zip tie head and the tail together, and you'll hear a zipping sound, and it will lock. We're going to cut, once you have that zipping sound and your hanger is as large as you want it, you're going to take and snip off that zip tie tail, and this is locked, and we have a hanger now. You can do this at the end of making your wreath. That's usually when I do it, but it's harder for me to demonstrate how to do it when all the mesh is on there. So I wanted to show you right from the beginning, that's how you do it. Now, like I said, you don't have to do it right now. You can do it at the end, but that's how you can make a hanger. All right, so now we're going to pre-board or preload our board closed. Most times when we're building flowers on the Unique in the Creek boards, it is closed. And what that means is we're going to start on row 2. Row 1, normally for flowers, row 1 is the holes to the outside of the board are used for green leaves when you're making your flowers. For this flower, I'm not going to use any green leaves. If I had a dark brown, I probably would have used it. But we're just going to skip row 1 for this flower. We are going to go on row 2. So what you're going to do is take your zip tie. You're going to go down one hole and back up the other, just like that. Again, your flat part of your zip tie is going to meet the tail. If you have it backwards, you won't be able to pull and hear that zipping sound. Okay, and this is what we call preloaded closed, because the zip tie is closed. Okay, and it's locked. You don't want to pull it really, really close to the board because we want to have room to maneuver our petals into the zip tie. So leave it nice and open. So let's do that again. So go down and back up. Hear that zip, and it's closed. So we're going to do each set of holes on row 2 exactly like this. Okay, so you're going to do all the holes. That's 16 holes on row 2. And then we're going to go down to row 3 and do the same thing. So there's the number 3. I'm going to go down and up that hole and do the same thing. Now there is this random hole between these normal sets of holes. This hole is here that you could use a zip tie from here to here and a zip tie from here to here, which what we call the shared holes. That's if you want to add a lot of petals and make your flower really big and full. With the deluxe foil mesh, we're not going to need to do that because this mesh is so saturated with color that you can't even see through it. So if you're using a less grade quality mesh, you may want to use shared holes, okay? So on row 3, we're just going to preload the normal holes on row 3. So there's 8 of them. And then we're going to go again and do the same for row 4. So we're going to use, and it's offsetted. We're not going to use the hole between where the 4 is because that is a bigger gap. We need the regular holes that are closer together. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's 8 on here. Okay, so I'm going to go and preload my board. And you can see on the back, we skipped that hole. And then another way you can preload is just put your zip ties going down this way. Lots of people do it like that. And then flip your board over and then just do them up. So either way works. However, whatever way you do it, we need all the holes loaded. So I'm going to come back once my board is loaded and we're going to get working on making the petals. Okay, so I'm finished preloading my board, and this is what your board should look like as well. So we preloaded rows 2, 3, and 4, and when you flip it over, it will look like stitching. So you shouldn't see any blank spots where your pairs of holes are. So we got 2, 3, 4. Now row 5, I usually do at the end when I get to row 5. And I do that because we're going to be using the normal holes with also the shared holes. And sometimes that gets a lot. When you're looking at it, it looks like a lot. So I leave that to the end so it doesn't look so overwhelming of zip ties. Okay, so we're going to just push this to the side and we're going to start our petal. Now you can do any petal you like. The leaf petal, the Dean Michael petal, the Gerbera petal, the lolly petal, whatever petal you like. For this flower, I'm going to be using the pointed sunflower petal, or otherwise known as the Rita petal. And it's a pointed petal that looks like that. There is a tutorial on how to do a half petal so that they're all curved the same way. So it just takes a little bit more time than the one I'm going to show you right now, but it's stunning. Now we are going to use curl up for this petal, which means here's our 10 by 10 piece. When I let go, the curl is going up. Some petals are curled down. For instance, the leaf petal, which you could do no problem with this as well. So you're going to use for the leaf petal, you would use it curled down and you would just scrunch from corner to corner, flip it up, and there you got your petal. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use the pointed sunflower, which is curl up. Okay, and now when I'm doing my petals, it's a good habit to make that the factory edges are always in the same place for every petal that you do. What I mean is when I'm making my petals, I always make sure that my factory edge is on the left bottom and the right top. Okay, so there's my factory edge. So the cut edge is where I cut it. And this one's not cut very, very well. And okay, so mine's always the right top and left bottom. And it's, like I said, it's a really good habit to have. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your 10 by 10 into a diamond shape in front of you. Take the top corner, bring it down to the bottom corner, and we are going to make sure that these two right and left corners are lined up as best as you can. Now, if you have clothespins, clothespins come in really handy where you can clip. Let's use one of these. You can clip and hold it closed. These are just little sewing clips. You can use like wood clothespins, plastic clothespins, whatever you have. And that helps keep the corners lined up, because not every time, especially when I cut my mesh, I have a hard time making a perfect square. So as long as these two, for this particular petal, as long as the two corners up here are matched up, it doesn't matter if the center is not over top of each other. And you can see that mine is not. And then what I'm going to do is pinch from these corners right straight up the middle. So when I'm just pleating and dragging with my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to flip it up. Okay. So we can take these off. And what you want to make sure is that the two corners are about the same length. You don't want one shorter than the other. Then you're going to take where you've pinched this corner, I call this the nub. You're going to put it right into the zip tie, about a fingertip length in, and zip tie around it. Now, I didn't heat seal my edges or my mesh, but that's okay. It still looks fabulous. I'm just going to trim a little bit. There we go. Now these are all going to layer on top of each other. So you're really only going to see from here up. Okay, let's do another one. Again, curl up, put it into a diamond. I have my factory edge on the bottom left, top right, bringing my top corner down to my bottom corner. Just running the mesh along the side here. I'm going to use a clothespin. Another clothespin. If you don't have any clothespins, you can just put something heavy on each corner, and then I'm going to flatten. Again, it's not a perfect square, which is okay. I'm going to pinch right up the center. Flip it upwards. Make sure it's the same length. I got it in between my fingers. I'm going to stick the nub into the next zip tie. Close the zip tie. It's about a fingertip length in, and tighten. so I'm done row 2, and this is what it looks like. Nice and sparkly. So now I'm going to go around, and you can use wire nippers, you can use a zip tie gun, you can use wire cutters. What we're going to do is go around and we're going to snip off the zip tie tails. Now you want to make sure you're not using your good ribboned scissors for this. I apologize for my dogs. Somebody must be at the door. Wire nippers are really easy because they'll go right straight down, right to the top of the zip tie head. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around and carefully place all the, where the petal has the manufactured edge, I'm going to put that on the top. So I'm just moving these around to make sure that the factory edge petal side is showing and not the cut edge. There we go. It just makes for a little bit of a neater look. Okay, now we're going to start row 3, which is 8 pieces of the gold I'm still using. So again, we're going to do the same as we've done. Now there's a little trick you can do if you have little rubber bands that you can get at your dollar store. They're in the hair section. You can pre-make your petals. That way you can just slip them right in. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, we got it clipped. Going right up, flipping it. And instead of slipping it right in, if you were sitting with a cutting mat or something on your lap, you can pre-make your petals with a little rubber band at the bottom, or even a clothespin. If you have a whole bunch of clothespins, you can just clothespin it and make a bunch of them, and then you can just slide them right into the zip tie, just like that. Okay, so we're going to do 8 more gold. And I do have a few pre-made. Look how sparkly this is. Okay, once they're all in, I'm going to go around and put my finished edges again over top of the petals that are showing the not finished edges. There we go. And then again, we're going to cut the zip tie tails off and throw them away. My dogs are being so unruly today. I apologize. Okay, so now we are on to our copper. So we do have about a little less than half a roll left of this, so you can add a little if you want to do another flower. You can add a few pieces of this for some added sparkle. So don't throw this away. Make sure you put it somewhere nice and safe, because this comes in really handy to add a little blam to your projects. Okay, so now I'm going to do the 8 pieces of the copper. Our flower is now coming together. Ooh, look how pretty that looks together. This just screams fall. So I'm going to do exactly like we did for the rest. So by now you should be a professional. We're going to do the rest of the row 4, 8 pieces. Okay, row 4 is done, and she is looking beautiful and sparkly in all her glory. Again, we're going to cut off these zip tie tails. You can put these in the recycle bin if you're a recycler. Okay, so we're going to preload row 5 again this time. And we're going to be using what's called shared holes. So first we're going to find the 2 regular holes, and we're going to go down and up again, just like before. Do the zip tie up. We're also going to put another zip tie down the same hole and back up this one and do it up. Now I put it in backwards, so you need to have the flat part of the zip tie head facing towards the tail for it to lock. Okay, so we have 2 zip ties in one hole, and that's what we call shared holes. Okay, so there's going to be 8, and that's why I normally do this one last, because it gets a little confusing if you're looking at all kinds of zip ties. So we're just going to go around, and I'll show you the back, because once you're done, it looks like a row of stitching. So let's flip it over and you can see what I mean. So when this is full, it's going to be a full row of zip ties, which will look like stitching. And this flower is getting pretty big. When it's done, it'll be about 24 to 26 inches, I believe. Yeah, 26 inches. Okay, so let's flip it over. There we got our stitching. So if there's one spot missing, means you're missing a zip tie. So we want some stitching in there. And what we're going to do is exactly what we've been doing all along. We are going to be putting our copper mesh. I have to cut 8 more pieces. Our copper mesh into the zip ties, just like we've previously done. Okay, fold it. This is just a different way you can do it. So you can do it folded down and scrunch up the center like that. And we're going to put our nub right in. Now you want to make sure it's only about a fingertip length in, because it's going to get pretty busy in the center here. Okay, so we're going to go all the way around row 5. Yay, we're almost done. Okay, this is me crammed in row 5, but you want to make sure that you still have a little space in the middle there, because we are going to be putting our center down the 2 holes. I'm going to cut these zip ties off. So I'm just kind of pulling and then making sure that they're nice and tight, because we definitely don't want these ones to slip out. Okay, now you can be complete here, so your flower can be finished. You can put your center on. So your center will be going, if you want, I'm going to show you a different little trick that I'm going to do. So your center, I'm not going to put it right on. So there you go. You can have your center. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. You can have your center on. I'm going to make just a little enclosure, if you want to call it, to go on my center. And what I mean is I'm going to go, even though there's a zip tie and a piece of mesh already there, I'm going to go down and up just 4 of the normal holes. So there's the, see how this one's a little bit longer, this one's shorter. These are the normal ones. So I'm going to go in the 4. I don't know if I can push that through. Nope. Again, this step is optional. You do not have to do this step, but I think it's going to look really good. And these are what that extra 4 pieces are for that I said at the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to do these up. So we're going to do them up closed. Okay, so there's the 4. And what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to make, I want it just to have a little bit of copper like encapsule. And at the end, we will trim off some of these strings or frays, because Deco mesh will always fray no matter what. Even if you wood burn it, it will fray. It just doesn't fray as much. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece of 10 by 10 mesh, and I'm going to keep it in the square, and I have my factory edge at the top and the bottom curl up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just line up the 2 factory edges and make a rectangle. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to flip it to the left side so my factory edge is on my left hand. I am right-handed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrunch up the bottom where we folded it. So pinch it in the middle and then pinch to the outside. And again, you do not have to do this. And I'm going to put where I pinched right into this zip tie. Easier said than done. It's getting pretty thick in there. And do the zip tie around it. I might have to use my... So what we're going to do is just kind of make a cupping around the center. I think it'll just enhance the center just that much more. Okay, again, curl up. We're going to fold it in half, meet the top and bottom factory edge. Just like that. Swing it around. pinch it in the middle, top to the bottom. See how it's kind of cupping in? And we're going to put where we scrunch right into the zip tie. Now, if you don't like it when it's done, you most definitely can just cut the zip ties off and take them out. All right, we have one more to do. So as you can see, it's formed a little like encapsulation to surround our center. I think it's going to look really cool. Alrighty, so this is what we have, what it looks like. Again, optional, these pieces. You do have quite a bit of copper left. We have a half a roll of copper because we didn't use as many copper pieces as we did the gold. So you do have a full half roll. So you could make another flower with this color, and you don't even have to use a deluxe foil. You could use this color with just a normal value mesh foil. But this mesh will amplify your wreath that much more. All right, so now I'm going to take and try and dig down there and find the 2 holes. So sometimes if you take your board and lift it up, you can see the light through the holes. There's one. So there's one, and then we just have to do the other one. Might have to use a little bit of muscle, get that in there. I think this is the trickiest part of the whole wreath. There it is. I see it. Got it. I'm going to pull this down gently. There we go. And then you're just going to twist your pipe cleaners. Oh my. Wow. Now, if you want, you can put a little bit of hot glue underneath your center to make sure it's going to stay there. Okay, now we're going to go around and make sure all our petals are pulled out and nicely formed. And you can go around and trim any strings that you see along the way. Once you stop touching the mesh, it will stop fraying. So make sure all your petals are pulled out straight. You don't want any tucked under. You want to see the points. Okay, and then once you've done that, we're going to gently bring this over. You're going to cut the 2 pipe cleaners, cut some of it off, and then you're going to take and put the ends of the pipe cleaners back down the holes. You can put hot glue into the hole to make sure it stays down there. All right, and then we have a nice clean back, and your customer doesn't see all the components and the functions. They just see the zip tie. You can put a sticker or your business card on the back. You can, if this is a gift, you can write a little note on the back of your board to the person you're gifting it to. But this is going to sparkle in the fall sun big time. Wow, that is sparkly. Look at that copper. Look at that center. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you liked this tutorial. If you want to see more, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have over 300 of them. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.